A drink called Naked and Famous, because
Hey, that's got Robert Rose written all over it.
yeah, that's how this that's how this podcast often finds me.
Hello and welcome to episode 327 of the Rockstar CMO effing Marketing Podcast, a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. It's Saturday the 20th of June. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rock star, but I am a full-time B2B CMO, and I hope you are well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. The intention of this podcast is to inspire your inner marketing rockstar. And for this week's dose of Marketing Street Knowledge, I'm joined by former Forrester Research Director Jeff Clark to discuss a mid-year assessment from Matt Heinz before I join Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at Seventh Bear, in our virtual bar for a cocktail to discuss the marketing jobs for humans. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word. We'll be right back. After this word. We'll be right back.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
You have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
Hello, Ian. Welcome to the Rockstar CMO studio.
Thank you very much, mate. How you doing?
I am doing well. We're having an absolutely stellar summer day. Not too hot, not too cold. Very sunny.
Nice. Yeah.
And we actually had some rain, which I think the last couple of times I've been on here, I was lamenting our dry period. Very dry.
Yes, and I was lamenting the opposite, which was that we were having
Yes.
rain. But our weather is on the turn. So apparently we've got another heat wave coming. So we'll be over 30 degrees, I think, mid next week.
That's probably what we just sent over to you.
Yeah.
We said we're tired of this. Send it over to the UK.
Yeah, almost certainly. Almost certainly. All right. So that's our first agenda item finished, isn't it? That's the weather done. So the topic this week, we are taking a look at some work from Matt Heinz, which I think many people in marketing are very familiar with, including our listeners. He's the founder and president of Heinz Marketing and what I would consider a genuine marketing thought leader. He's been doing this for the last couple of decades, but he's recently published a report called The State of B2B CMO, almost halfway through 2026, which is a post on Substack, and it's got an accompanying PDF, which I think is ungated, and I'll include a link to in the show notes. And just a little intro, and the source of his research that he's done is it's a synthesis of CMO conversation pulled from CMO coffee talk discussions, Slack threads, peer one-to-ones, panels, and a regular flow of work I do with senior B2B marketing leaders. So it's basically based on what his experience has been for the last 6 months or so. And to explain that almost that I highlighted there, he actually published it in May, and we've just got to it in June because it was one of the things that we've had on our list for a few weeks. So now I've explained it all. What say you, Jeff? What do you think of the report?
Well, first is, it's not the end of Q2, so,
That's
mid-year report, we're not too late, and he's too early. So our take on his interesting observations is not too late. And even though it's a mid-year reflection, it seems like it's covering a lot of ground that, kind of takes us into next year and beyond. And I imagine his impetus for getting this thing out was that, things are changing rather quickly as he's seeing it, and certainly, I think we see that as well. So, what better time to set people up for what they should be thinking of as they take their summer break and think about, when I come back, this is what I'm going to do to my marketing team.
Yeah. And there is some instructions, isn't there? There's some suggestions for what we should go through.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we've given this report our 5 effing things treatment as usual. You're doing 3, I'll do 2 in the summary. So what's the first one you got here, Jeff?
Financial literacy is a required skill. So I love the quote in here. The CMO-CFO relationship in B2B was characterized by mutual eye rolling. The CMO didn't want to learn finance. The CFO didn't want to learn marketing. Both pretended the other was the problem. And that arrangement, apparently, according to him, is over. So it appears that there's just pressure on the CMO to adapt, and not necessarily the same pressure. Nobody's pressuring the CFO to become a marketer. I'll tell you that. And so pressure from early stage investors, private equity boards who are focused on quarter-on-quarter growth. CMOs need to sharpen their financial skills, and so you understand kind of like the company's business model, and more importantly, that is just how revenue and margins are kind of processed in the organization, or how that affects stock price. For example, he talks about the rule of 40, which is this idea that you add up your year-over-year growth rate plus your operating margin, and that should clear 40. However, a lot of these people are now saying, well, maybe that should be 50, maybe that should be 60. And so CFOs are looking to marketing to cut costs and improve the margins, right? And so the CMO needs to know how to how not only defend what they're doing, but just to understand what impact they're doing that can improve those margins, improve those growth rates. And so there are things that maybe you need to reframe, I think he mentions that, CFOs always, ruffles their feathers when you mention anything about brand. But if you reframe brand spend as agent engine optimization or something that shows relevance to contemporary buyer behavior, then maybe they can say, okay, I get why we're spending money on that. At these early stage companies, CMOs should be asking questions about capitalization tables, about share price dynamics, sort of like in their interviewing process and in talking to the board, just to show that you understand how marketing can influence those financial elements, positive share price, and at least not the fact that you want to make sure that you're showing that marketing will not dilute share value. So it's always good, I was thinking I always had a good relationship with a CFO because I had good control over my budget, but this is asking you to kind of take that next step, further and help the company control its own share price. And one of the things that I know you may want to comment on is that he also talks about, being aware of the AI time bomb, which is in any company, certainly any marketing department that is using AI agents, that when these companies, the AI companies, are going to start saying, well, I'm going to actually charge you the real value of using those agents, that's going to be a big jump in your budget. And so you need to be aware of what you're using, how you're using it, prioritize where you're using it, and also just the idea about if the price of those things goes up, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I once worked with a CFO, and he said to me, "Wow, you're the first CMO I've worked with that can count." And he was, if you can imagine that coming from a very tall German fella, it's quite whoa. But he was, that advice is just good. I noticed actually in this report, there's a lot of stuff that's just good, sound fundamentals, right? And I also think that if you understand, we all understand how the game works. We know that when a company is distressed, when there's challenges with revenue coming in, we know that the first line item that they're going to look at to improve margin, as you say, Jeff, is going to be marketing. So you need to have your canary in the coal mine, which is that you understand the financial situation of the company, and you need to be in this shit, don't you? You absolutely do, as you say,
Yeah.
And also understand, this idea of the rule of 40, not something I'm super au fait with myself, but absolutely. And not just how your company is rating your financial performance, but those people that judge your company, particularly investors and the board, and what they're looking for. Because again, you can just see the calamity come. You can see the train coming down the tunnel, right? So it's straight for you, So, but yeah, I mean the token economy time bomb is really interesting. There's three. And actually, I was going to make this a whole thing.
Yeah.
But
one of our 5
whole
points.
observation of one of our effing things, because there's 3 interesting things happening here. One of them is that I don't think businesses like this sort of usage token thing, right? They like fixed. This is going to cost you this per month, or it's going to cost you this per year, or whatever. And we've seen the story that's doing the rounds about how Uber spent their entire annual budget for AI coding in the first 4 months. So that shit can happen, right? Because it's like a runaway train within your business. There's that. And there's the other thing that we saw, which is here in Europe, they pulled one of the AI models, and because the US decided that it wasn't allowed to be used outside the US. So therefore, I think it was just outside the US, or was it in the US as well? Then that this new model. So at any point, if your business is dependent on an AI tool, a couple of things can happen. One is they could kill the actual tool underneath, or some legislation could prevent you having access to it. And I saw a LinkedIn post where somebody was actually impacted by that change. But also, as Matt is talking about in his report, is if the pricing changes, then the economics within your marketing budget can change, can't they? So there's that whole thing right now is we need to be really careful of, and it could cause friction with this beautiful CFO relationship that we're trying to foster, right?
Yeah, we're trying to show we're good stewards of the money, and then, whoa, geez, what happened?
Yeah. But that means that we need to keep our house in order, right? So if you've got somebody running around spending all your fucking Claude tokens in the first quarter that you'd planned on to spend for the whole year, you're going to need to manage that within your team, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which,
so what's
our number 2?
Yeah, that's you asking me. I know how I know how this show works. I've been waffling on so long with that last one. I thought it was my number 2.
Okay, what's 2B?
Yeah. Well, again, it's one of those ones that it's good advice, but we've probably seen it prior to AI. It's just that AI is bringing it out. But he talks about the role of the CMO is changing, which is no shit, Sherlock, right? We've been talking about that forever, right? But I think that specifically, it's about how AI has been impacting the role, and that's what Matt touches on in this report. But also and I'll talk about that in a moment. But one of the things that he was talking about is CMOs becoming CEOs, which I don't think we've discussed on the podcast before. So for me, I'm not really that surprised by it. He sort of balked at the fact that CMOs aren't becoming CEOs. But for me, the CEO is obviously the ultimate commercial role. And it's not surprising that this isn't a career path for CMOs, because we don't have that hard-nosed commercial background, despite what you're saying, Jeff, right? Well, it's actually highlighted by what you just said, right?
He's trying to get that hard nose.
Yeah. But he is seeing a change, and leaning into that first point that you made, and that as we get more focused on it. And he's saying the CMOs who aren't going to land on that path are the ones still trying to be the chief storyteller. The ones who are landing on it are the ones who spent the last 3 years quietly making themselves dangerous on commercial questions the rest of the C-suite assumed they couldn't answer, which is interesting because that makes a lot of sense, and I can go along with that. And yes, okay, so we really need to reinvent ourselves as CMOs to become somebody else who's helping out with understanding the money. But I can also make the case for the visionary CEO who is the chief storyteller. I've worked for a few. And some may say that not all CEOs are that financially astute, even if they do have a commercial background. But like any leader, they depend on the team around them. So I think there is a role for a marketer in the top job as a CEO, even the storyteller kind. And because I think the good CEO can be the chief storyteller, not always the chief bean counter, right? So that's what I thought about that idea about the CMO roles changing, and particularly his idea that we need to all want to become CEOs.
It is. I mean, it's an interesting development, and obviously it may be very dependent on the industry, the business model, even lots of things. You know, but a business savvy CMO has every right to be considered for that job. And you can see how other C-level executives would take if they were in that job, they're going to take a company in a direction, right? They're going to be more focused on the profitability and the bean counting if they're used to be a CFO, or they're going to be focused on how do I drive a sales-led organization if I was a VP of sales or a CRO, or it's all about the product if I was the guy that founded it with his great engineering idea. But a well-rounded executive, with a vision should be considered for a lead role, no matter where they come from. And usually if it is somebody who is doing a good job and they come from one of those other functions, it is because their skills go way beyond that function.
That's so
I've certainly worked with CEOs who are great storytellers, and I've worked with CEOs who just as soon sit in the back room and we only give them 10 minutes at the user conference or meetings because they could only be so compelling. So
yeah. And I think that and it is having a well-rounded leadership team, isn't it? But also, I really like your point there that you're making, because I think that's one of the diagnoses we need to make as a CMO when we're coming into a business. I mean, we talk about that Michael D. Douglas 90 days thing, don't we? A lot. But one of the key things is to understand: are you a sales-led organization, a product-led organization, or a marketing-led organization? And I think that I've had that conversation on a number of occasions. That really is very clarifying, isn't it? You need to know that. And it may be the wrong direction, and you as the CMO might want to try and shift it, especially if they say we're a product-led organization. You're thinking, really? No. More features and functions are not going to sell this shit. But anyway, what's your number 3, mate?
Well, the one thing I was just going to add is just thinking about people that we know that have been CMOs, is that the CMO is probably the top job they aspired for. They coming up through marketing, and it's like, I want to be a CMO. They didn't think, I'm going to come up through marketing, I'm going to be a CMO, I'm going to get on the board, I'm going to be a CEO, I'm going to, it's just, it's not what their thought process has been. But that's not to say that it couldn't be.
Yeah, but that's also what, in fact, I think I'm starting to completely disagree a bit with this report, because I think it's wrong to assume there's that assumption. Just because CMOs aren't becoming CEOs, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. It's just that that's not what we got into business for, right? Like I've worked with a lot of CEOs that I really would not have wanted their job. So,
absolutely,
absolutely. Anyway, what's your number 3, mate?
Where the buyer is not where we pretend they are. So Matt Heinz quotes studies that says 15 to 30% of search for B2B SaaS solutions today is through AI, through the large language models like ChatGPT. Though I'd say that sounds kind of low, given what we've been talking about and what we've been hearing from other people, is that that would seem a low. Of course, he does frame that as B2B SaaS solutions. Obviously, you get in a different market, it's going to be different. But, since the buyer's eyeballs are, they're moving, and you got to go, where they're going. So you need a strategy that places content on sites that are easily traversed by the AI agents. So he mentions Reddit, YouTube, think of tech review sites like a SourceForge or whatever. Where information is out there, it tends to be, I guess we'll say, more objective. And as we've discussed in previous episodes, that's where you want your content to be. His bigger point, I think, though, is the places that we pay to place content are not large. They're not AI or large language model friendly. So with your online search, or with the buyer's online search migrating towards the LLMs, you need to be aware that your pay for play strategy that you used in the past may be wasting money. And it's hard to attribute the impact of the content. If it's not getting picked up. He makes the point: clean attribution. The clean attribution answer doesn't exist, and then he puts in parentheses, yet may never have existed. And may never exist again, as if it ever existed in the past. So this is the thing is that, which I think we've talked in previous episodes, AI will skip over the hype. They'll skip over, if you put marketing fluff up there, the site you put it on may shut it down because it's not getting results from AI. I think there's a little case study about how Reddit shut down content for a marketer. So, it's our old saw about place content on sites that are going to be leveraged by the LMs that's useful, instructional, uses original research, highlights customers, maybe customers who become fans, and they brought the conversation from one platform to another. And the other thing that he mentions that I appreciate, he said to demonstrate the impact, he's citing some CMOs who use a tactic that I know I've often recommended on the show, which is like a brand visibility score. It's like, how can we index a number of scores that we track on a regular basis, like AI citation frequency, share of voice, market authority signals, and anything that your team is tracking on a weekly or monthly basis. How can you index those together to say this work that we're doing, which we may say it's on brand, or we may try to reframe that as something else, but this work that we're doing is actually having an overall impact, particularly if I can show how that's trending or correlating to business measures like increase in revenue, profitability, share price value.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I also think that we might pull back a little bit on that. We think when you talk about share of voice, brand, understanding your brand, all that kind of stuff, you think, oh God, that's just for the big boys. But a lot of these signals and indexes scores that you talk about there are accessible to all of us, right? So it's not, you can build a brand visibility score even if you're a relatively small organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is interesting. But I sort of agree with everything you say, but also I agree that you made the point that none of this is new, right? So, but the bit that I think is new is the discussion about Reddit, which is increasingly, something I think we need to pay attention to as marketers. And it's hard, and as Matt Heinz says in this, it's a community that's hard for marketers to gain at scale. And as you mentioned, he talked about a marketer that tried to join Reddit and then got banned, presumably for being too promotional. And that credibility is the very reason why LLMs are leaning to it as a source, because it doesn't, there is little marketing fluff in there. But I would encourage people to take a look at it because it's a paid ad platform too. It isn't like some kind of cleaner, holier than thou place, right? There's an ad platform and you can advertise on it. And I've seen that perform really well from an awareness perspective. And it's a good source of brand sentiment and insight. You want to know what people are saying about you. So totally, I think marketers need to engage with Reddit. But if, as we say, if you come over to corporate, you'll be banned. So don't try to emulate. I was thinking of that meme. I don't know if you've seen it. You must have seen it, Jeff, where it's Steve Buscemi. It's from 30 Rock, and he kind of walks in wearing a backward baseball cap, dressed as a kid, walking into a locker room, and he goes, "How you doing, fellow kids?" Right? and he's clearly not a kid. So don't take that approach with Reddit. But I think that it's interesting what he talks about in terms of, I mean, I know that I've sort of gone down a bit of a Reddit rabbit hole, but that's what I saw was new in this. The rest, I think, is what we already.
I guess it goes back to the key, the word of the year politically. Authenticity is key.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So what's number 4 on our 5 F?
Well, this is effing 5 effing things.
Our effing things.
Well, it's the effing organizations, the impact of effing AI, I guess. But what I did here is I didn't pick one of his big ones. I just picked some of the things that he'd been talking about throughout the document, right? So, we've just talked about the impact of AI on the finances, right? Which is one of the things, the challenge of tokenized pricing and that impact on prices. But throughout the document, he does make a few points about AI that I thought I'd bring together in my number 4, because it was, we just do 5 effing things. So I kind of cheated a bit and I kind of squeezed in a few here. So one of the things I think was interesting, and I actually tested this a little bit on LinkedIn with a post earlier, and he says we're past the moment when AI was the topic on its own. AI is now the operating environment of B2B marketing. And I think, you and I have discussed in the past about Gartner research that shared that CMOs had to do something with AI, and I'm doing the air quotes, as a priority. It was like, wasn't it third in the top 10 priorities of CMOs according to Gartner last year?
Yeah.
And it's a mandate from leadership. But as it now turns from experiments and having to do something with AI, I like Matt's term that he calls it the operating environment, and that's now impacting our organization. It's here. It's mainstream. Everybody's using it. It's part of what we do. So I think operating environment is the right expression. But also, he some of the conversations he shared, and I think this is definitely a rabbit hole and a red thread to go down. Is we're hearing that the ROI of replacing humans with agents is, as he describes it, at best unclear. And he says everyone has agents. Few will tell you on the record what they're getting back. So I think that the agents thing is still an experiment, and the cost model is still an experiment. And I think that, to your point that you're making earlier on, which is that the LLMs are at some point going to want to start making a profit, right? That pricing will change. So we will actually, and there is some discussion, isn't there, around the internets about, well, actually, it's cheaper to have people than it is to have agents if you're sucking up all these tokens. And then there's
Bring
two
back
more.
slavery.
Oh, steady. And there's two more. The one of them is he talks about the role of head of AI, which I wasn't really feeling, to be honest. And he was asking whether they are friend or foe. And maybe he's genuinely seeing it, and people are hiring head of AI. But to me, it sounds like a transient role, like we used to have head of digital transformation back in the day.
Exactly.
So it's just somebody.
What happened to those people, by the way?
I don't know, but I don't see this as a. It's really got to fall within our IT or our marketing ops or our rev ops. Everybody's going to be AI of some kind, right? So, and then he talks about vibe coding, which I've also talked about. Is blurring the lines between the roles in marketing, right? So, we're not just seeing like content creative and creative, but it seems like every marketer is now standing on the toes of marketing operations, right? Because we can create, their vibe coding landing pages. They're putting low code and vibe coded integrations together with the CRM. And his quote is, "A few CMOs are now spending real time being part-time CTOs of their own marketing staff. Some of them love it. Others have started asking out loud whether this is actually their job." And I love this because this is that free puppies, free beer argument that we've had many times, right?
Yeah.
That somebody vibe coding a single user thing that works on Thursday afternoon is not a strategic piece of software that you necessarily want in your stack, right? And that's when the adulting has to start, and that's where you want to buy software or you want somebody looking after it, right? So that was. Sorry, I sort of merged four into one there. I did cheat a bit. So.
You were slicing and dicing, but it came together, and and it's all about the organizational impact, and I think that in some ways, to me, it'd be welcome news for the CMO to take an interest in AI and what it's doing in the tech stack, and advocating on behalf of the ops team for to make sure that investments are in the marketing technology are more impactful. And certainly I've had the pleasure or the curse working for companies where marketing was basically told to use our own technology that we were selling, and I even had an application development team that was, worked for me because we were developing apps to register users for user conference and use mobile. We build our own mobile app, or we were modifying the CRM system, which was using our technology. So I think it's just. It gets into the whole build versus buy argument, and as we know, if you're doing a lot of building with AI, even if you're buying with AI, you've got to be wary of what the costs are going to be down the road, and so it makes sense for the not to be the CTO, but to just understand it more deeply and make sure that it's used in the proper ways. So.
Yeah, it's that governance thing, isn't it? It's not just about how much it's going to cost; it's actually how much it's going to cost you going forward, maintaining this free puppy. I think there's
What's wrong with free puppies?
But isn't it interesting though?
Yeah.
I mean, we go back to the classics all the time, don't we? In this case, it's build versus buy, which we've been talking about for a couple of decades.
Yeah,
Since forever, right?
since time immemorial.
So let's look a little bit more forward. What's your number 5?
Number 5 is tensions that are defining 2026, and again, this is probably one of those things that it could. Well, yes, it's a roll up of a number of things that we've talked about, but also it's like, yeah, tensions for 2026, 27, 28, probably, and a little bit beyond. But it's like, the tensions between the CMO, their staff, the colleagues, on the C-suite. They're just some things that you need to stay on top of. And I'll just touch on these quickly because this is like you rolled 4 things into one.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's what I meant by roll up.
To it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I meant by roll up. You cheated as well.
Yeah. But anyway, so he talks about AI versus your staff morale. And so, this is an obvious one, because, the more staff employs AI, the more they may worry about whether they're going to be replaced. So again, we want to be targeted about how you're going to adopt AI and show how you're trying to make sure, you're trying to make execution easier for everybody, not necessarily replace people. If you're trying to, if you're interested in keep morale high, if you're not interested in keep morale high, just go for broke. Brand investment versus, so that's the first one, brand investment versus profitable growth. So you ensure that your brand programs are prioritizing visibility and growth to help fend off the big budget cuts. Obviously, as marketers for the last, maybe 10 years or more, everything became about demand, which is obviously important for showing how it impacts revenue. So there's this constant balancing act between demand, brand, cutting costs, expanding the company, helping the company grow. So that's certainly a tension that will continue. This one I found interesting. You talked about self-service versus high-touch motions, because you've got what he calls the antisocial buyers, the ones that'll just do all their work in the back room. They'll do all their research. They'll get on ChatGPT and Claude, and they'll ask all their questions, and they really don't want to talk to a human being until it comes down to making the purchase. And then there's the relationship buyers, led buyers who, do everything based on relationships they have with vendors and building those. And so depending on your market, you may need to service both. It's not a one or the other, which I think is really important. As much as we talk about, hey, everybody's doing all their research online, it's like, well, you need to know how to build personal relationships as well. And the last one, which gets back to what we were discussing at the end of your last point, was speed versus governance. This is particularly relevant for the use of AI because AI provides speed to execute, but it also can break things. It can break internal processes that work. It can create bad customer experience. And so just like, in data management, as marketing teams are becoming good with data management, it is a smart move to kind of establish a governance team, that develops a set of AI policies and can react to issues as they pop up, because they will pop up. So it's these 4 things are just, helpful for the CMO to keep in mind as we go through this dynamic changing environment that we're in, much of it impacted by AI.
Well, it does sound like there. I mean, we were talking about chief of AI just a moment ago. And it sounds like all the C-suite needs to be a chief of AI, right? Because it impacts every part of the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, we need that governance team, that's for sure. And and I know that we've picked out 5, or you and I have cheated a little bit and rolled some up there. There's some significant meat in the report in that section, and in the 2 last sections, 5 and 6, about tensions recommendations that we didn't quite get time to dig into. But what I think is interesting about those tensions, and I've said this now, I think, 3 times in this conversation, which surprised me a little bit, is they're fundamental challenges we've always had, right? So if you were to strip out AI and just talk about technology in general, I mean, yes, it's having an extreme impact, but marketing technology has always been standing on someone's toes, right? I mean, a lifetime ago, I once proudly proclaimed in a client presentation that this CMS will do away with needing to do all that pesky HTML coding. And then a little voice in the back of the room said, but I quite like HTML coding. That was when I was in pre-sales back in the day, right? So I just think that right now, the speed and level of disruption and the level of adoption in that every single person you know and speak to is using AI has accelerated this, but it's not really, it is different and it's the same at the same time. It's funny, isn't it? That's what I think. Yeah.
Change is constant. It's the only constant.
Absolutely. So, shall we roll into
and the fundamentals
conclusion?
are the fundamentals. Those are the two things we
They are.
rely on.
Yeah. The fundamentals will always be the fundamentals.
Correct.
So, shall I roll into the conclusion then? So, we'll wrap this
Yes.
up. So, I think we both encourage the listener to take a look at the document. It's ungated, and I'll include a link to it in the show notes, and you can find it on Matt Heinz's Substack. As you mentioned, he goes into depth with these tensions, but he also talks about what's working today. And actually, at the end, he provides a working list of what we should do for the next 30 days and during Q3. So there's quite a lot worth reading in this that we weren't able to share in this. What is it, half an hour? Yeah, we've gone a little bit over, so it's like half an hour. But just to summarize the FN points that we took from the report. Number 1, financial literacy is a required skill. Number 2, the role of the CMO is changing. I probably could have done better with the title of that, but specifically, whether we want to be CEOs or not. Number 3, where the buyer is versus where they pretend they are. Have I got these in the right order? Number 3, yes.
Yep.
And number 4, there are a number of ways that the organization is being impacted by AI, and I talked about that. And number 5 is he's defined a number of tensions that we kind of find quite interesting, but they're kind of based on the fundamentals, aren't they? So
Correct.
those were our 5. And
so you're picking the song today, Ian.
I am. It's my turn.
What do you have for us?
Well, we had
close
quite a
out
few,
on?
didn't we? And some of them we'd used before, like Road to Nowhere, which I thought was quite a bleak observation, Jeff. I think you suggested that one.
It is,
and then we've
that
got
song, though. The song it actually says both. We know where we're going. We don't. It's anyway.
Yeah. But I'm going to put the same theme, and I'm going to go for some Duran Duran. I'm going to go for Ordinary World for the line, where is the life that I recognize? But on the flip side, I will learn to survive. I'm not even going to try and sing it. So I'm going to play out with a bit of Duran Duran. And it's Cassie next week. So you're back in 2 weeks' time, right, Jeff?
Correct.
All right.
See you in a
decide
fortnight.
what we're going to chat about. Yeah, I'll see you in a fortnight. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Thank you, Jeff. And that was a tiny bit of Duran Duran, Ordinary World. And the work we were referring to there is on Matt Heinz's Substack. And it's called The State of the B2B CMO, almost halfway through 2026. And of course, I'll include a link to it in the show notes. Right, time to wind down in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, and join Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at Send the Bear, as I pick his brains over a classic cocktail.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing tremendously well. It is Southern California. It is summer. It's almost my birthday, so it's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Nice. Well, happy birthday for almost your birthday.
Yeah, it's if I'm doing my math correctly, it's basically the end of this week. So
Nice. So what are we going to drink to celebrate that upcoming?
Well, basically, I thought the most appropriate thing would, of course, be a drink called Naked and Famous, because
Hey, that's got Robert Rose written all over it.
yeah, that's how this podcast often finds me. So the Naked and Famous, it's a really fun drink. It's a little bit weird in terms of the ingredients here. Because we've had a similar cocktail that's called the Last Word, and then we also had a cocktail on this show called the Paper Plane, which are very similar to this drink. But basically, it starts with a little bit of mezcal, and what you want is a mezcal that's not too smoky, right? You want one that's not too. They can be very, very smoky and very, very peaty, as it were, like a Scotch.
Yeah.
But if you can find one that's the least amount of that, that's what you really want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add 3/4 part of Aperol, which you can generally find pretty easy. 3/4 part of a chartreuse, which is also pretty easy to find. And then, of course, 3/4 part of lime juice. So Aperol, chartreuse, mezcal, and lime is the ingredients. Put all that into a shaker, shake it with ice, and then you're going to pour it into strained, no ice, into a coupe glass. And it's a very pretty drink, by the way, because it'll have the orange sort of tone to it. So it looks like that. And that is and it is a strong drink. I will tell you, a couple of these, you're on fire. You will get naked and you will get famous. So there you go.
Yeah. Put the phone down, Robert.
Yeah. Exactly it.
It's no time for Facebook. Fabulous. Well, I look forward to drinking those and raising. We are drinking those because we're in the bar, and I'll be raising. Let's raise a glass to your birthday.
Yeah.
So while we're sipping these, I've got a question to you that comes after a little quote. So again, I'm pulling from your work. This time from your Lens newsletter, which people can find, as we know, at rrlens.com. And I'm going to read out a little quote to set you up, and then I've got a question for you. So, and this is the one called "You Had to Be a Big Shot, Didn't You?" Because I noticed you started to. Well, I don't know if you've always done it, but they're song titles, aren't they, or song quotes?
They all are. Every one of them are. Yeah, all of them are pulled from either 70s, 80s, sometimes 90s, mostly 70s and 80s. Rock songs. Yeah,
I do the same for the Beat newsletter that accompanies Rockstar CMO. Although listeners that read that will know that I haven't actually done it for a few weeks. But I did. And do you find, this is a bit of an aside, do you find you spend more time trying to find the right song than writing the actual whole post, or does that work out for you?
Don't actually, because I will tell you, this is one of the things. This is something that AI is particularly good at, which is I take my finished post, I put it all into Claude actually, and then I say, give me some suggestions about songs that would fit this from the 1970s or 1980s, and it usually comes back with a handful. And what it does is what it doesn't do is come back with lyrics, which is what I want.
Right.
It comes back with because of copyright and all that kind of stuff. So it'll come back with titles, and then I'm like, right, that, and because I know the song, and I'm like, that's the perfect song. So I'll go find the appropriate lyric for.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
So, I like the way you applied AI. I hadn't even thought of that. So I should give that a go. And I actually go with titles. So I wouldn't even need to bother looking up the lyrics. So
there you go.
I miss a step.
Well, here's what I do find.
Yeah.
Is that because, most of my posts / newsletters, there's a theme to it, right? There's marketing, content and strategy and, all the rest of it. So it often recommends the same songs. Like, so for example, just as a fun aside here, almost inevitably every single issue it recommends, you can't always find what you're looking for, right? So,
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like that song. It's like, okay, I did use it. Like one of my first ones, I used it, but
let's stop now. Yeah. It's funny. Sometimes actually, the song comes to me, and I think I can write a great post with that as the theme. So sometimes both of them come to me at once, but I don't use AI very much for ideation. I'll use it to help support research and to polish something or give me some angles. So I always start with a blank page. So I should try that. I think it's a good idea, doing the article, then figuring out the title.
There you go.
Anyway, that wasn't why I've lured you into the bar this week. I'm going to read out a quote from your latest newsletter, or from that newsletter we were just talking about. You say, for 2 years, we've been trapped in the dumbest debate in the business. Will AI replace marketers or augment them into X-Men? Panel after panel, carousel after carousel, the whole industry squinting at a coin flip. It was the wrong question the entire time. Wrong enough that answering it cost us 2 years and a fortune in cookies. Tokens. I love that. But then I said cookies by mistake. The right question is one marketing has been dodging for 26 years. By the way, I love that specificity that you said 26 years. What work actually deserves a human's time? So, Robert, what work does deserve a human's time? That's my question.
Well, as Dr. Evil might say, the story of my life is quite inconsequential. So the story of the tasks that deserve human is probably in marketing is probably pretty inconsequential. But no, in all seriousness, it's when you think about the tasks that we used to, what the percentage of our day in marketing was spent thinking, writing, planning, working, researching, and actually, putting together the right creative, putting together the right media plan, putting together, all of these sort of what largely we would call strategy today, or what we would largely call planning or creative these days. That was how we spent our time, right? And those tasks, those ideas were largely how we spent our entire day.
Yeah.
And when I look at marketing teams today, even senior level managers are not spending their time doing that, right? What they're spending their time doing is configuring a piece of software, working in workflow, updating the Kanban board, making sure that this calendar gets updated, making sure the CRM is putting out the correct list, making sure the automation workflow is working. We have transformed marketing in so many, and this is just the sum total of digital, into the majority of our day. And I used to, I can never find this stat, but I always remember it. And so at this point, it might be urban legend, but the stat I remember seeing was 35% of a marketer's day now is spent either selecting a new technology, configuring an existing technology, or looking around for a new technology.
Wow.
And so the interesting thing now is that we have become so overrun with technology, and AI is just the latest one, is that we have now basically gotten off all of the tasks that we used to do. Now, you can argue that in many ways we still do some of that. We hire agencies to do some of that. We hire strategy consultants to help us do some of that prior work, et cetera, or that it's relegated up the food chain to the CMO or to the VP of marketing or whoever it is. You can, maybe it's been centralized a bit, but the result nonetheless is the same, which is we end up with these tasks that are now, and this is why it's the tipping point now, which is what we've done is we've really transformed the lower part of the career ladder, whether it's young people, whether it's those new to the team, whatever, that there's sort of a corresponding task list, technology, commoditization in order of where you are pecking order on the career ladder. In other words, your first job in marketing is almost assuredly something that can be automated with AI these days. And then your second job is one that, maybe most of it can be. And then the third job up is maybe 45% of it can be, and so on up the ladder until you get to the one person who is supposedly going to be sitting in a corner with some headset on, vibe coding and vibe marketing their way out of a paper bag and trying to figure everything out with AI at their side. And of course, none of that is actually going to happen, and none of that is actually true. But what is happening is that we, this is something we talked about last week, which is we are so prone to immediately associating you can do this with the technology versus should you do this with the technology. That's what we're doing with AI right now, is we're just giving it tasks and giving humans in the loop the task of that before even asking. But starting with the question of, does this task even deserve a human to begin with, much less whether it should be automated from AI or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw a post float past my feed the other day, and I actually reposted it with quite an extent because my thoughts didn't fit into a comment, so I wrote a big piece about it. And there was this concept of the idea that they're going to be marketing engineers, which are basically the people that are going to work the LLMs and do all these vibe code and all that shit. While there'll be that class of marketer, and there'll be the other class of marketer, which are the creatives. And what I was wondering was, and I think this marketing engineer term is like, it's marketing ops, really. It's nothing new.
Well, of course, yes.
It's different set of tools.
Yeah, I mean, we used to call it marketing ops. Then for a while, we called it digital marketing.
Yeah.
Then we called it, the SEO team or the content, management team, or, then it became the sort of digital part of the organization. In many cases, it's the digital team, right? That does all things digital. It's like this is your sigh was well earned, right? I mean, because it's like do we need another term for this? Do we need do we need another term for prompt engineer? It's like, no, it's also tired. It's just another way to say, yes, basically, I think what you're seeing happen there is sort of, when you see things like the rise of marketing engineer, what you're seeing is basically a reaction to the fact that there's a pushback of sorts from the people on the teams that are saying, enough is enough. This is not what I do. It's not what I'm good at doing. And very similar to the digital teams that grew up in the 2007, 2008, 2009 timeframe, when we saw digital become its own department. Because why? Marketing automations, systems were complex and needed really good people to figure out the templates and do the workflows and do the if-then statements that needed the rules engines. And, you needed really smart people to configure CMS templates, and you needed really smart technical people to be able to do search engine optimization within the pages and understand code and understand HTML. And so you needed all of that. And this is no different than before. It's just another set of tasks to give to those same people.
Yeah, that was. But one of the things that I was sort of arguing in the ramble that I wrote was, I was thinking about this. Well, I was thinking about this, like, the old mainframe computers. We needed to, if you had a business request, you gave it to an analyst then interpreted it. They gave it to a programmer. The programmer did all the cards, the punch cards and the paper tapes and all the spinny wheels and all that kind of stuff. And eventually somebody would bring you a report to your desk. Then we had computers on every desk, and everybody could use Excel and all this kind of stuff. And then move forward. Are we seeing that kind of transition where now everybody's AI enabled? So some of that work will go away because of that. And then I remembered, I actually know people that can't fucking work Excel or PowerPoint, right? And still rely on people to help them with that. So is it something like that? Like like being able to use AI tools is just going to be a de facto skill that all marketers are going to need, like having Microsoft Office skills, for example?
I think so, with a key difference being, this is why I think I can safely say one of the things that so first of all, just as a point of history, because I love your framing of it as sort of going all the way back to mainframes. Let's not forget that the term computer was actually a term for a human person, right?
Yes. Yeah.
When NASA or, when everybody they were looking for a computer, they were looking for the person, right? They were looking for the person who could do all the computations. And so the computer was really the machine version of the person. So just with that sort of background, you can start to look at, what might happen here. The interesting thing to me about AI on the sort of hypothesis that you just put forward is with Excel, with Office, with those kinds of things, they are largely what my boss, really one of my favorite bosses of all time, Jim Howard, he used to talk about this when he talked about content management systems. And office tools and all that stuff, which became quote unquote expert systems. In other words, they were systems by which you could become an expert at and ultimately manipulate, in a way that others couldn't. In other words, there was a way to get really good at Microsoft Word and really good at Excel and really good at PowerPoint and really good at the CMS. And if you so they were in many ways tools where you could build a skill set around. AI feels different in that way, right? Because in so many ways, it is all about the tool. There is a sense of, knowing how to apply good questions, good prompts, good ways of interacting with it to get what you want out of it. And there are sort of skill sets that you can see that are necessary that, for example, if you want to code something up or if you want to create a workflow in Claude and have it automate, agentic AI go out and do the thing that does the thing. But in so many ways, I think that becomes bifurcated into there is that which just is. In other words, the system that we use every day. And maybe that's like we use Word, right? Like how you and I use Word, right? You and I don't do desktop publishing and sort of layout and all that. You can do that in Word, but nobody does, right? Mostly people use it as sort of glorified notepad. And so then there is this sort of other side, which is the expert systems, which I could see things like Cowork or Agentic or, code or those kinds of things where, yes, but you have to, the configuration of which and the integration with other tools and all that kind of stuff itself becomes an expert system, right? Whether that's embedded into Salesforce or it's embedded into Word with Copilot or whether, so I think it bifurcates, right? Into the, sort of usage becomes like typing, right? Working with AI becomes like typing or just experience, like how we now sort of take for granted working with Siri or that sort of thing versus the expert system, which is actually getting into the details.
Yeah. So we would use AI to do expert things, but you're going to need to be the expert.
That's the thing, right? It's like, when we say AI, what we really mean is electricity, right?
That's a good point.
Nobody's going to get good at electricity, right? You're going to get good at the thing that electricity powers, right? So in so many ways, that's AI, right? You're not going to get good at AI. You're going to get good at whatever thing that AI is empowering.
I love that.
And some of those will be expert systems and some of those will be dumb terminals that you just talk into and nice things happen.
Nice. Well, if the listener wants nice things to happen and is looking to read something that's going to help them with that, where are they going to find that?
They'll find that on my newsletter, which is rrlens.com.
I like that. And which we just read a quote from, so I'll include a link to that in the show notes. Yeah. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs and they want to know what you're up to at the moment, where are they going to find that?
They'll find me on LinkedIn primarily. Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm sort of down to that. I don't think I can remember the last time I posted on Facebook, but
wow,
yeah, that's like
me neither.
I'm really just LinkedIn.
Nice. And for my selfish needs, are you going to be in the bar next week?
Oh, indeed.
I'll see you then, my friend.
All right.
Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. A super conversation and happy birthday to him. And so relevant now as we figure out the balance of how much robot we want to be as marketers. So that's a wrap on episode 327 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thanks to Jeff and Robert. Most of all, thank you for putting a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track and jiving along with us. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. You can find links to our little band and the articles we discussed in the show notes, along with links to our blog, newsletter and all of our previous episodes at rockstarcmo.com, or follow us and join the conversation on LinkedIn. Next week, Kathy will be in the bar and asking if AI is giving us scale or just more volume, and Robert will be back in the bar. In the meantime, a quote from Matt Heinz: "You need less tech, not more. The antidote is choosing. Strategy is choosing."
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Heather Eck hosts an amazing show called Your Radiant Spirit. Heather, tell listeners about the show.
What if the colors you're drawn to, the creative urges you ignore, and the quiet intuitive hits you brush off are actually trying to tell you something? Your Radiant Spirit is the podcast that helps you listen and live with greater clarity and purpose.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find and subscribe at heathereck.com/yourradiantspirit, on marketingpodcast.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.